Namaste, greetings and blessings, and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts. This is our Sunday message, and I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, the founder and spiritual director of this center. And I invite you to watch not only this Sunday message, but any of our archived messages. I invite you to join any classes or events that we have going on. I invite you to reach out and email if you have any questions. Questions about this community, questions about me, questions about what we do, or questions about this science of mind and spirit, liberation theology that we practice and teach. And if by chance you find yourself seeking beloved community with other like-minded beings, even if you already belong, are a member of another community, church, or center, you are more than free to have multiple affiliations wherever you are fed and find community. You are invited. And lastly, feel free to click like, subscribe, and share this or any other message or announcements with others in your circle. And with that, much appreciation, love, and blessings. Enjoy the message. Namaste and greetings and welcome to our final Sunday in May. What are we talking about today? Overcoming silence. Note, silence doesn't necessarily mean silence. What we are talking about is individual and collective liberation. So silence can be represented by anything where we do not express. As a writer, silence is not writing. As a public speaker, not speaking. As a teacher, not teaching. As an artist, not creating, etc. How do we overcome silence? How do we express for the purpose of individual and collective liberation? So this week we will dive into the transformative power of speaking out, speaking up for both individual and collective liberation. How do we break the silence so that we can enhance and nurture trust, so that we can drive meaningful change, and so that we can foster a more inclusive culture and society? Let us explore some of the barriers that keep us from expressing, keep us from voicing our truths, and share practical strategies on how we can overcome those obstacles. Breathe. Let's learn how to embrace our creative expression, our voice, because it is precisely the thing that will pave the way and lay the foundation upon which we create a world that works for all. And this world that works for all is a world where we have individual and collective liberation. This is our opportunity to unlock all of our divine potential, to use the divine potential of your voice, your creative expression, so that all of us learn how to move, live, and be together, connected, communicating, cooperating, and collaborating. Breathe. If you are new to CSL, Centers for Spiritual Living, or this community, or Science of Mind and Spirit, you may not know that Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of this spirituality or this spiritual path, created these things called the Declaration of Principles, also known as the We Believe statements. And one of them says, we believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete freedom from, a complete emancipation from, a complete liberation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. Now, you may be saying, well, if we get rid of all discord, then how do we learn? How do we grow? Note that that paradigm of consciousness is rooted in the idea that suffering is necessary, that problems are necessary. The only way you learn peace is by having war. The only way you learn equity is by having racism. No, 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 no. No. There is a thing called divine discord, where I, as an artist, feel the urge to create. And when I don't, I feel out of sync. That's discord. I can create from that space. I don't need to be the pathetic, pitiful, starving artist who is, oh, so broken. And that's the place where my creativity comes from. I don't have to create from there. So, freedom from all discord, we are talking about eliminating all of the isms and phobias and miseas that we currently exist within. Because once those are gone, we can then step into greater divine discord and create from that space and that energy. if we want to. More than likely, you've seen some version of the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil concept. But you may not have equated it with the idea that silence equals death. Now, this phrase and this image came up during the ACT UP movement when the AIDS crisis was being ignored by the Reagan administration. And the ACT UP activists realized that when we are silent about those who have HIV, AIDS, and all of the things within that, the finances, the the way they were treated in medical facilities and hospitals, families, etc. Silence. When we do not see them, when we do not hear them, and when we do not speak up for them, there is death. Now, we could apply this to any number of things in our culture and society today. Just think about in your own life. Have there been times where someone told you, shh, don't say anything? Stop. No, keep quiet. Ignorance is bliss. Have you ever heard that before? Have you ever believed that before? That ignorance is bliss? It's not. Ignorance is not bliss. To be ignorant of termites eating at the foundation of your home is not bliss, because your home will come tumbling down. Having some form of illness or disease. When I did not know that prostate cancer was forming in my body, I went around there. I'm going around my life as if everything's fine, but everything was not fine. And had I not gone to the doctor for the checkup, where she realized that my blood, my PSA numbers were elevated, and she sent me to a urologist, had those things not happened, I might not be here now, or at least not for long. Ignorance is not bliss. In the moment, maybe, but in the long term, it is not. So if silence equals death, death for whom? Who dies when we are silent? Well, according to Pastor Martin Niemöller, in case you don't know him, I suggest you look him up. But he was a clergyman who initially helped Hitler until Dietrich Bonhoeffer schooled him. And then Niemöller, at a later time, realized the error, and he created this poem. So, death for whom? According to him, first they came for the communist, and I saw no evil, spoke no evil, heard no evil. I didn't speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I remained silent because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I kept silent because I was not one of them either. Then they came for the Jews, and I remained silent because I was not a Jew. And then eventually they came for me, and there was no one left to speak up, to speak out for me. So death for whom? Well, it depends. When someone witnesses any kind of injustice and we keep silent, death for whom? Potentially the one who is being abused, that we chose silence. And in that, knowing that God is all there is only one, and what happens in one area of the divine happens throughout, then when one of us suffers, we all suffer, we all die, quote unquote. As Fannie Lou Hamer and many others have said in their own iteration, none of us are free unless all of us are free. Until all are free, we are none of us free. So silence at any time affects everyone, not just those people or these people or me, or as he said, first they came for the. Well, I was silent regarding them, but there's always that next domino. There's the next someone, and the now it's you. Who's going to speak up for you? So keep in mind that refusing to speak out, refusing to speak up hurts everyone, including you. I decided it is better to scream because silence is the real crime against humanity. Oftentimes in New Thought, we are told to be quiet. Oftentimes, when someone such as myself pray or speak, because I am so passionate about whatever I am praying regarding or speaking about, I am loud. And there are many who tone that down. Why you? Shh. Prayers are supposed to be ever so mellow and let us all gather. Nothing wrong with that. That's not me, though. So I have found that I have decided that I have chosen to be me. And I realize that in being me, that which God is as me expresses itself. Because to choose otherwise is a crime against divinity. To choose not to use all of this divine power, glory, grace, love is a crime against the universe, if such a thing exists, for the sake of linguistic convenience. So it is better to scream. Right now, we see all manner of things going on in the United States and beyond. We see such things as a non Catholic president saying that he should be the next pope. A couple of weeks ago, in case you missed that in the news. Note that there are even many Catholics who are MAGA who are silent. When you know that this goes against everything you believe as a Catholic, why are you silent? Do you realize that your silence is a crime against your religion, a crime against humanity, because you are complicit in blasphemy? Are you in your life, for whatever reason and in whatever way, because screaming doesn't always happen vocally, right? Like someone who uses American Sign Language, they need not scream, but they scream with the language. And that may be in protest, in protect, in activism, in art, in posting vlogs, posting videos on TikTok. Screaming happens in a great many ways. Art is one great way that many artists have screamed. How do you scream? How will you choose to scream? Have you ever heard of this show? What would you do? Have you ever sat back and watched a couple episodes and asked yourself, if I was there, what would I do? Manager sends an unhoused teen back to the street. If I witnessed this, what would I do? Would I scream? Caregiver steals winning casino jackpot from elderly man. Would I scream? Father tells son to get violent with bully. Would I scream? Or would I agree? Yeah, go beat the bully up. Get violent. If he hits you with his fist, get a stick. If he gets a stick, get a brick. If he gets a brick, get a knife. If he gets a knife, get a gun. Because everything can be solved with guns. Are you willing to scream? What would you do? Would you say that it's none of my business? Or would you speak up and speak out? Parent, drunk in public, heads to the car with kid. Would you scream? Adult criticizes young girl's lemonade stand. Would you scream? Kids respond to seeing a young girl being bullied. Would you scream? Would you speak up? Would you speak out? Or would you remain silent because it's none of your business and therefore complicit? See, Science of Mind and Spirit as a liberation theology demands that we not be complicit. There's a level of we can witness how none of my business shows up in the world. Now, Mamie Till Mobley says, 2 months ago, I had a nice apartment in Chicago. I had a job. I had a son. And when something happened to the Negroes in the South, I said, that's their business, not mine. Now I know how wrong I was. The murder of my son has shown me that what happens to any of us anywhere in the world had better be the business of us all. Now, I understand that where we are, I'm sitting here in Pittsburgh and I'm trying to get stuff in Pittsburgh together, and you telling me to be concerned about what's going on over in North Korea. I'm saying realize that what's happening in North Korea or Russia or South Africa or the Congo or Palestine, realize that, yes, do what you need to do where you are. Dallas, Texas, do what you need to do. Atlanta, Georgia, do what you need to do to take care of you and your family and your loved ones and yourself, etc. Yes, but also realize that you do not exist in a vacuum and that what happens there is and will affect you. Be aware, which means when praying, don't simply pray for your needs to be met. Pray for a world that works for all. Don't simply pray for you to be okay. Pray for everyone in the line, in the path of the hurricane to be okay. Don't simply pray for, as long as I'm okay, everything's okay. Because it's not. I'm sure Mamie Till Mobley was praying diligently for herself, her family, her son, etc. And yet, the evils of the South did not leave her unscathed. And keep in mind, at any moment, we are all doing the best we can with where we are, with what we have. But keep in mind, as she said, I realized through the murder of my son that what happens to any of us anywhere had better be the business of us all. No one is free until we all are free. How are you using Science of Mind and Spirit to ensure that you are free? Because from your freedom, you then are able to do what you need to do to help liberate others. In our ignorance of the truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And so great is this power, so complete in our freedom in it, so absolute the domain of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon us the very conditions from which we suffer. Note, pause, time out, time out. This is not to imply that Mamie Till Mobley or Emmett Till brought upon them what they suffered. No. What Ernest is saying here is the idea that because neither Mamie Till Mobley nor Emmett Till created racism, Jim Crow South, etc. But once again, what happens in the collective, even when we are far from it, because there is only one, it's going to affect us anyway. Sooner or later, it has no choice but to. So, who at one point, and it really doesn't matter who, but somehow in history, the consciousness of supremacy rose and took over. It took over in policies and politics and governance. And that paradigm, this power, the highest power we possess, the creative use of, created racism and sexism and toxic patriarchy and more. And as a result of that creation, as a result of that use of the power, we here now in 2025 still find the space to suffer as a result of it. Now, granted, I myself am not suffering from. But if anyone anywhere is suffering, if anyone anywhere is suffering, I can't separate myself from them. I can't say that's them, this is me, that's their business, this is mine. Pull themselves up by their own bootstraps like I did. I got my enlightenment, get your own. What happens to any of us anywhere in the world had better be the business of all of us. So what are we doing? Our invitation is to say, oh, so then I can use this same highest power to change and transform these conditions. Yes. If we are willing to do the work to do that. Let's remix. Ready? Other than the acts of nature, we created all of the wonders and all of the horrors of the world. The mental equivalence of the collective consciousness created racism, sexism, toxic patriarchy, homomisia, transmisia, xenomisia, weapons of mass destruction, mass shootings, cults, religious manipulation and trauma, political corruption, monarchies, and dictatorships. Our continued ignorance of the truth and the embodied activity of the truth will continue to create more conditions from which we will suffer. Or we can choose new life-affirming mental equivalence. So again, this is not about blame or shame for anything that someone is experiencing. It is about each of us taking responsibility and accountability to do what we can, where we are, with what we have, to heal self and others, evolve individually and collectively, to live our best lives individually and collectively, and to create a world that works for all. Speaking of which, I'm considering doing this as a book study. If you'd be interested, let me know. Ready? It takes commitment to stay with the rigors of the journey. Each fresh insight that points the way to greater wholeness tests our motivation to expand our being or realign our doing. The work of becoming more integrated calls for a commitment to self-scrutiny and growth. But because integration pivots on an axis that includes both being and doing, it reshapes the relationship between self and others. and spurs us to examine the quality of both our inner life and the engagement and our engagement in the world. As we have already seen, the activist and the mystic have growing to do in both arenas. Spirituality cannot exist in a vacuum, ignoring social conditions or the plight of humanity. And activism cannot hope to transform the social order in the absence of mature spiritual development. Both must grow beyond any form of privileged exclusivity. In fact, they each must embrace a reality that joins them in service to individual and collective liberation. Breathe. Those who do not move do not notice their chains. Wait, what? Remember, there was a time when it was said, still not sure how accurate it is, how factual it is, but it was said that Harriet Tubman at one time or many times made the statement that she freed so many and that she could have freed so many more if only they knew that they were enslaved. There are many people who don't realize they're in a cult. As one of our members here at SIA often has said in the past, people don't join cults. People join groups. And then, once indoctrinated, realize, if they realize, but at later point, it's, oh, I joined a cult. There are many people who are in toxic relationships. And there's a part of them that knows, but there's a part of them that doesn't realize it because they don't notice their chains. So we, like Kal-El, are invited to break the chains, to move, to get active. For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedoms of others. It's not just about us individually. How do we ensure that others, everyone, and this is one of the reasons why I do not say a world that works for everyone, I say a world that works for all. Because if we in the superior of Homo sapien, humanity over nature, over animals, over the environment. That's how we got with climate change and global warming now, because we have placed ourselves above rather than working with nature. So a world that works for all, how do we, for to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances all of nature and the freedom of all of nature to work and coexist in the biosphere of God so that all may live and thrive. Breathe. And we have, down through the ages, developed many means to attempt to heal, mend, and atone for our actions. Yet, while our spiritual paths have assisted us, our aspirations to be better human beings may inadvertently hinder us. To be good people, we tend to bypass the messiness of our lives in order to enter the gate of tranquility, serenity, and enlightenment. Ah. Can the gate of tranquility really be as we imagine it? No matter which way we approach peace, it seems we must cross the burning threshold of human conditioning to enter it. We have to be engaged in the messiness of life in order to transform it. So before we leap to the universal, the true essence or spirit, why not start where we are as human beings? Why not start right where we are with mental health? Why not start right where we are with the unhoused? Start where we are with political corruption. Start right now where we are as human beings. We must carve a path through the flames of our human condition. We must see it for what it is and bow to it, respect it, honor it, not a pitiful bow, but a bow of acknowledgement, of recognition. Because by acknowledging, by recognizing our human condition, we acknowledge that we might not know how to end hatred and that we are not superheroes. We are human beings. We are not superheroes. We are not here to magically, mystically change it all, but change what is ours to change. All of the great teachers, Dr. King, Malcolm X, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, etc., were human beings who made a change. Human beings who used their voice. Human beings. Now, once again, speaking of chains, in A Christmas Carol, Jacob Marley's chains symbolize the years of emotional and moral, ethical burdens that he accumulated in his life, particularly the weight of greed and lack of compassion. Got that? Once again, when he was alive, this is the great symbolism of this. When he was alive, he did not realize that he was in chains, but it was after death that, in the story, after death, he realized, oh my goodness, this is what I've been forging. This is what I created with my life. And this is why he comes to warn Ebenezer Scrooge, to tell him, you see how long mine is. Yours surpassed this years ago. You do not realize that you are in chains because you're not moving. Not moving, but you are not moving with the flow of life. You are not moving with the flow of the divine. You are not moving with the flow of the universe. You are stagnant in your emotions, stagnant in your silence and your see no, hear no, speak no evil frame of mind. As he said, I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on of my own free will. My own free will, I wore it. He's taking accountability. He's taking responsibility. I did this. And now I'm warning you, Ebenezer. Stop now while you have a chance. Set yourself free. As I mentioned, Harriet Tubman is known for the Underground Railroad and helping get people free. She is referred to as the Moses of her people. Why? Because Moses did the same thing, getting the Israelites out of Egypt, right? Okay. Do you realize now, once again, Harriet Tubman, a human being, made a choice, and her choice resulted in the liberation of others. As Audre Lorde said, when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength, to use my voice in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid or not. Because the vision is going to pull us, regardless of the fear. Feel the fear, and the vision will pull us anyway. The people were terrified as Harriet Tubman was doing her best to get them free. And yet, as Audre Lorde also says, for the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to temporarily beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change. Racism and homophobia are real conditions in all our lives in this place and time. I urge each one of us here to reach down into that deep place of knowledge inside herself and touch that terror and loathing of any difference that lives here. See whose face it wears. Then the personal, as the political, can begin to illuminate all our choices. When we know we are bound and we know the face of what we are bound by, we are far more capable to break the chains and make changes. One of the other things that Sharif Abdullah says in his book, A World That Works for All, he references this idea that our world has changed in so many different ways, and yet the governing policies, the governing strategies of today were created hundreds of years ago. And we're still operating today based upon that. For example, the Second Amendment. The crafters of the Second Amendment could not have imagined school shootings today. But we are still governing today, the changes of today based upon, right? So once again, the master's tools, the tools of toxic capitalism will never dismantle the house of toxic capitalism. Breathe. So what will dismantle it? Once again, awareness. How do we become greater and great? How do we develop greater and greater awareness of the chains, of the consciousness, of the mental equivalents in order to shift them individually and collectively? Practitioners use whatever argument they find necessary to bring their own minds to an acceptance of the truth about their clients. They mentally free the client from any belief that the habit of drinking, or whatever it is, has any power over them. To the extent that they are able to recognize the complete freedom of their clients, this freedom will become objectified in the lives of whatever the person is addicted to, unless they willfully choose to keep their chains and be ensnared by their habit. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink. If we want liberation, it doesn't matter how great the teacher is, it doesn't matter how great the life coach is, the minister, unless we willfully choose to be free, we won't be. Think about the dangers that people had to be willing to undergo to hear Harriet's call to freedom. As she said, I prayed to God to make me strong and able to fight. And that's what I've always prayed for ever since. People were risking their lives for freedom. They were risking being shot, being lynched, drowning, and yet they willfully chose liberation, while others willfully chose enslavement. It's our choice. Indeed, our survival and liberation depend upon our recognition of the truth when it is spoken and lived by the people. If we cannot recognize the truth, then it cannot liberate us from untruth. To know the truth is to appropriate it, for it is not only mainly reflection and theory. Truth is divine action entering our lives and creating the human action of liberation. To know the truth is to appropriate it, for it is not mainly reflection and theory, it is action. Remember that Dr. Holmes said that one of the greatest tragedies of this new order of thought is that we engage in too much theory and too little practice. We think about instead of be about. It is said a picture is worth 1,000 words. If that is the case, then what is the moral of this story? Why are so many in line for comforting lies rather than unpleasant truths? Why are so many in line to buy a black belt, but not to earn one? Which line would you be in and why? Which line have you been in and why? Do you know people in this line? Do you know why they're in that line? Are you willing to help them get out of that line for the other one? Breathe. Sometimes people hold a core belief that is very strong. When they are presented with evidence that works against the belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted. Flat earth versus sphere, cult versus, they cannot accept the truth. It would create a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable called cognitive dissonance. And because it is so important to protect the core belief, they will rationalize, they will ignore, and they will even deny anything that does not fit in with that core belief. We see this happening in our politics right now. What are we doing to transform this? We'll talk about that a little bit more. Any idea what these four things have in common? All four of them have one particular word in common. Know what it is? No idea? You sure? Nothing. You want me to tell you? Okay. The word is bypass. Oftentimes, we think of bypass as a non life affirming thing. We talk about spiritual bypass as the thing to avoid. And yet, there are times to bypass the brokenness, right? There's a road with traffic. I'm going to bypass it on the clean, healthy road, the empty road, and circumvent and get around the blockage. That's what the heart is representing and the stomach. You are circumventing, bypassing one area for another. Okay? So it can be life affirming. Our invitation is how do we use that concept? For example, actually, let me go back just so you're not, just so we're all focused. Political corruption is how things are operating. How do we effectively use science of mind and spirit, spiritual principles, and truth to bypass that? You cannot use the master's tools to erode the master's house. Circumvent it, bypass it, get to a new point in the road so that real liberation can occur. Now, the question is, are we aware enough to be able to do that? Real liberation comes not from glossing over, bypassing, or repressing painful states of feeling, but only from experiencing them to the full. Smiling and saying everything is fine when it's not is not how real liberation comes about. You ever see that TV commercial? It's for some medication where there's a woman carrying a stick with a smiley face on it, and she puts her real face is because she's depressed, and she puts the smiley face up in front of her. And they're telling, the point is take this medication. You still might carry this, but it's now in your purse, it's now in your back pocket because you're able to engage life more authentically. How do we, rather than deny or suppress, I'm depressed, I'm grieving, acknowledge it, experience it in full, and navigate and move through it? Because when we repress, when we suppress, we're actually doing greater harm. Did you know that this is almost the same kind of thing that Dr. King spoke about? As he said, I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. There's this repression and suppression where we refuse to see the facts for what they are to make necessary changes. And so the white moderate, the consciousness of, continues to do what it's been doing all along. Breathe. What has it been doing all along? Well, at one time, colonialism was legal, slavery was legal, the Holocaust was legal, Jim Crow South, legal, apartheid, legal. Legality is a matter of power, of dominance, not of justice. If you use the state as a metric for ethics, you will end up disappointed because currently it is operating in the exact opposite. It is not operating based on justice, it's operating based upon what they think is power. But we understand what real power is, divine power. They're actually using pseudo power because true power doesn't need to subvert, hurt, harm anyone, right? True power, I have no need to carry a gun. But that gun gives me a sense of, yeah, I wish somebody would. I will pop a cap and they, psh, please. Oh, okay. But why? Gives you a sense of greater bravery, like I can handle this, and yet, if we created a world where that was not necessary, then it's not necessary. So rather than living or trying to survive in a burning house, let's get out of the house. Let's stop the fire and all of the damage it is causing. Breathe. Unjust laws exist. Shall we be content to obey them, or shall we endeavor to amend them and obey them until we have succeeded, or shall we transgress them at once? How do we use our spiritual power for the purpose of liberation? The struggle to end sexist oppression that focuses on destroying the cultural basis for such domination strengthens other liberation struggles. Individuals who fight for the eradication of sexism without struggles to end racism or classism undermine their own efforts. It's all connected. Individuals who fight for the eradication of racism or classism while supporting sexist oppression are helping to maintain the cultural basis of all forms of group oppression. None of us are free until all of us are free. And what happens to any of us anywhere in the world had better be the business of all of us in the world. So you want to create a world that works for all? Is that what we want? Well, if it is, then we got to get honest about. We cannot have a world that works for all while oppression exists. Homomizia exists. White supremacy exists. The caste system exists. And more, and more, and more. We cannot do it while any of these things exist. So we have to be honest about these things so that we can eradicate them, so that we can heal, evolve, shift, alchemize, whatever words you want to use. but so that these things no longer exist, or at least begin to exist in far lesser degrees than they do now, so that eventually the flames are actually out. The fire is gone. Since each of us represents an individualization of the nature of God, there is freedom of circulation of divine love, reason, peace, joy, and perfection through the human. But we must cooperate with this wholeness of life if we wish to be made whole. Therefore, we should maintain a calm and expectant attitude, endeavoring to realize that we are some part of infinite life. Now, I invite you to come back to this and look at each of the 5 steps for overcoming silence. Embrace your voice, engage in spiritual practices, create safe spaces, advocate for change, persist in your journey. Go through these and identify ways that you can begin to practice them because, as we said in the beginning, silence equals death. How do we raise our voice in whatever way we need to raise our voice? How do we express so that we change and transform? We are bound in a supreme unity. We are tied in an immutable law of irrevocable cause and effect. That is the unity moving in action. Cause and effect is something that happens as a result of the use of the unity. Consequently, we are one, even while we are many. And since each one of us is a part of the whole, if we seek to destroy each other, we only ultimately hurt ourselves. This is the great lesson of life. Freedom, then, will come only to such degree as we no longer do anything that hurts anyone. But that does not mean we have to become spiritual or intellectual doormats. I don't believe in that. There is nothing in my belief which causes me to feel that God or the creative principle wants me to suffer for myself or for anyone else. Dr. Holmes. The Science of Mind and Spirit 4.0 offers us a means and method to be the expression of spiritual truth and spiritual principles. And for that expression to be a healing, transformative power in the world. It gives us the courage, boldness, and audacity to not only recognize the woes and ills of the world, but to do something about them. We do not simply recognize the child who is hungry. We do not simply give them a slice of bread. Rather, we use the fullness of the creative process to ensure that the child has nutritious food every day of their lives. Our voice is expressed in how we treat others, how we serve, how we vote, how we protect and support all that will create a world that works for all. Breathe. Our affirmation or declaration this week, I will say it first, and if it resonates with you, say it with me the second time around. I courageously break the chains of silence using my voice, which empowers me and others to claim our collective liberation. Together, I courageously break the chains of silence using my voice, which empowers me and others to claim our collective liberation. And so it is. This week's journal questions or Thursday night study questions. Number 1, when have I spoken up about an injustice and how did it feel to do it? Number 2, what, if anything, scares me regarding speaking up? When have I remained silent? What was my reason for remaining silent? And how did it feel to do that? And remember that slide that I was talking about, the 5 steps? Okay, that's this. What would it mean for me to engage in the 5 steps for overcoming silence? What do the two pictures, a picture is worth 1,000 words, what do they say to me about human behavior in general and about my life or me, my nature specifically? Lastly, what is an example of when I have used life affirming bypass and an example of non life affirming bypass? And what was the result of each? And starting today, we are going to do something new called the practice. This week, your practice is the following. Are you ready? Role play a conversation where one person says something that is racist or sexist or anti Semitic or something. And then practice how you would respond, how you might respond to what they said. And then switch roles. We strengthen our voice by practicing our voice. No one gets better at the piano by simply reading about the piano and never touching it. Through the active practice, we strengthen the very skill. And with that, this week's prayer is simply the acknowledgement of knowing that the voice of God is our voice. The word of God is spoken in everything that we do and every way that we act. The universe, the song of the universe, sings itself in our breath, sings itself in our footsteps, sings itself in our heartbeat. All that we are, the way the blood moves, mirrors the way Mother Nature moves the rivers and streams. The rise and fall of our chest and abdomen, and the way air flows in and out, every breeze and gust of wind across the planet. All of this body is a divine reflection of nature itself. And so we breathe and allow this divine representation of the isness and allness of spirit, the universe itself, to do what it is meant to do. Live, love, laugh, enjoy, shine. Knowing that this is already answered prayer in this moment right now, named and claimed, embodied, accepted, and now chosen to act upon. Just as the universal law of cause and effect acts upon this word and mirrors back to us our entire mental equivalent, I know it is already done. It is already answered prayer. The way we live our life is our amen. And so it is. So it is. Namaste, blessings, everyone. Happy end of May. See you next week for June, the month of Pride. Ooh, we're going to get into some stuff next month. Be ready.